Chapter 42-57. Although they had memorized the mnemonic chant, they couldn't understand what it meant. He wanted to cultivate properly, so he had to quickly learn how to read. This way, in the future, he could be like what his father and Uncle Hua had said. Mother could refine pills when she read, and she could cultivate by herself when she read. Hearing his words, little Yu-er finally calmed down. She closed her eyes and her eyelashes trembled. She kept repeating in her heart, Yu-er, sleep, sleep. 2 days later, Fengjiu brought the little fox out of her space at the Nightless Club. She looked at its 9 conspicuous tails and said, "You can turn these 9 tails into one, right?" When the little fox heard her words, it looked back at its tails and hid them one by one, leaving only one behind. Fengjiu revealed a satisfied smile and stretched out her hand. "Come up." The little fox paused for a moment and jumped into her arms. "Don't speak in front of people, so as not to scare them. I'll take you out for a stroll and let you see the world outside the Cyan Demon Forest." As she spoke, a medicinal pill appeared in her hand. It emitted a rich spiritual aura and a sweet fragrance. When the little fox saw the medicinal pill in her palm, its eyes lit up. It rolled its tongue and immediately swallowed the medicinal pill. In the past 2 days, although she had been fierce to it and had threatened it, she had treated it extremely well. From time to time, she would give it pills to eat. Every time it ate those pills, it would feel a burst of comfort throughout its body, and its cultivation would also increase a little. After 2 days, it saw that there were so many benefits to following her, so it gradually accepted her. And she had said that she wouldn't form a contract with it and would leave it to her daughter. What kind of daughter would she be? Fengjiu stroked its head and walked out. Ling Shuang, Du Fan, Yi Feifei, and Wang Yu were already waiting outside the courtyard. When they saw her come out, they greeted her and went forward with her. The Nightless Club's monthly trip was usually led by the city lord, but today, it was led by Elder Yen and another middle-aged man. Hundreds of people were waiting outside the city lord's gate. "I heard that the guests from other places will be following us today, and the city lord seems to be bringing them to the Qilin Mountain." "Yes, I heard from Elder Yen that those people seem to be very strong. The city lord thinks highly of them. Actually, I'm quite curious about where they came from. Could it be that they are stronger than the city lord? I don't know." The sounds of discussion could be heard as the city gate was opened and a few people walked out. Occasionally, there would be silence. They stood upright, quietly looking at the city lord and the few people who walked out. "Greetings, city lord." Everyone's voices rang out at the same time. They were orderly and loud, reverberating in the air, causing one's expression to shake. The city lord raised his hand and said, "Everyone, I believe that Elder Yen has already told you that I will go with you on this trip, but I will not return with you. You have to be extremely vigilant on the way." "Yes." Everyone replied in unison. The city lord turned to look at Fengjiu and the others and said, "Miss Feng, let's go." Fengjiu nodded slightly and followed them out of the city gate. After the mighty team exited the city gate, they all rode on their swords and followed the signs on the road. Chapter 42-58. "Miss Feng, this is the map you asked for." The city lord took out a map and sat down beside her. He spread it open and said, "That day, you should have gone in this direction. There's a desert in this direction, and not a single blade of grass grows. It's extremely hot, and there's no water source. If cultivators from other places enter this place by mistake, they'll either get lost or die of thirst due to the sun. You were really lucky that day." Fengjiu looked at the map. Indeed, there was a desert in one direction on the map, and there was no oasis at all. In comparison, although there were no cities or people for hundreds of miles in this direction, there were trees along the way, so it was still feasible. "Looking at the distance, we're not far from where we're going," Fengjiu said. "That's right. This time, we traveled faster and shortened the distance. Based on this speed, we'll reach Infinite City in one day. He pointed at a town drawn on the map. Then, the city lord told Fingzhou about the layout of this place, and the location of Qilin Mountain, while the city lord, Fingzhou, and Du Fan were engrossed in their conversation. Elder Yan had already ordered people to set up camp and rest. Black tents were erected in the small forest, creating a unique scenery. City Lord, Miss Feng, the tents are set up. You can go and rest first. Hearing that, the city lord looked at Fingzhou and said, Miss Feng, you can go and rest for a while. Rest up before you continue. As he spoke, he looked at Du Fan and said apologetically, the tents are limited, so I'll have to trouble Brother Du and Brother Wang to stay in the same place. Du Fan smiled and said, as long as the city lord makes the arrangements, we can stay anywhere. Fengzhou smiled and walked towards the tents with the city lord and the others. The three women shared a tent, the city lord, Du Fan, and Wang Yu shared a tent, and the others squeezed together. Fengzhou and the others entered the tent, while Du Fan and Wang Yu followed the castellan to another tent. Seeing many people patrolling outside, Du Fan stopped and asked, Castellan, is there any danger in this area? Oh, there won't be any humans, but there will be ferocious beasts. Maybe we won't encounter them, but it's always good to be on alert in advance. Hearing this, Du Fan nodded and went in with Wang Yu. The black tent blocked out the dazzling sunlight. Although it was dim, it made people feel comfortable. They lay down on the mats inside to rest, while there were still people patrolling outside. On Fingzhou's side, as soon as Yi Feifei laid down and exhaled softly, the little spirit mouse in her arms scurried out and jumped around her body while squeaking. Don't be noisy. Hurry up and rest. Yi Feifei reached out to grab it and stuffed it into her arms. Unexpectedly, the little thing squeaked again. Fingzhou, who was sitting cross-legged, stroked the little fox lying next to him and said with a smile, Feifei, your treasure-hunting mouse has been quiet, but it keeps squeaking here. And it seems that it wants to take you to find something. You'd better go. Hearing Fingzhou's words, Yi Feifei, who was still a little tired, immediately sat up and her eyes lit up. Master, do you think there will be any treasures around here? I don't know. Fingzhou shrugged his shoulders. Chapter 42:59. Master, I'll go take a look. Yi Feifei got up and prepared to go out. Ling Shuang, you go with them. Fingzhou gestured and looked at Ling Shuang. Yes, Ling Shuang replied. She left the tent with Yi Feifei and headed to the back. When the patrolman saw the two of them leave the tent, he couldn't help but look at each other and said, why did they go there? Should we tell Elder Yan and the others? It's better to tell them in case something happens. As the other person spoke, he walked towards another tent and told Elder Yan about Ling Shuang and Yi Feifei's departure. Elder Yan thought for a while and said, don't worry about it. They shouldn't have gone far. Besides, since Miss Feng didn't say anything, it means she allowed it. Don't worry. Yes. The patrolling cultivator responded and left. The spirit mouse jumped on the ground and led Yi Feifei and Ling Shuang deeper into the tent. After walking for a long distance, it stopped at a small spring. There's a spring here. Yi Feifei said in surprise. She went forward and drank some water. Then she took out a magic tool from her space and filled it with water. She looked at the little spirit mouse and said, you brought us here to find this spring. It's not a treasure. Squeak, 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 squeak. The little spirit mouse squeaked and used its front paws to scratch at the edge of the spring. You said there's a treasure in the spring. Yi Feifei blinked. He was a little surprised, but he didn't doubt it. Instead, he went forward to take a closer look. This small spring wasn't big, but the water was extremely clear. Moreover, there was a spiritual aura permeating the air. The source of the water seeped up from the ground, but he didn't know why it became spiritual water. Elder sister Ling Shuang, this water seems to be spiritual water. Yi Feifei looked back at her and said in surprise. Look inside the spring. Ling Shuang said and gestured for her to look. Okay. Yi Feifei replied and rolled up her sleeves. She reached out and touched the spring. It doesn't seem to be anything. There are only some stones in the sand below. As Yi Feifei spoke, he retracted his hand and looked at the spring water again. He found that there was a faint flash of light in the water. It seems like there really is a treasure here. She happily reached out her hand towards the spot where the light came from. Not long after, she pulled out a bead the size of an egg from the sand. Sister Ling Shuang, what kind of bead is this? Yi Feifei showed her the bead. Ling Shuang took it and glanced at the place where the spring water was originally gushing out. There was still water seeping out, but it had lost its spiritual energy. She retracted her gaze and looked at the pearl in her hand. She saw that the pearl was suffused with a water-blue luster, and there seemed to be water ripples surging inside. She said, this should be a water spirit pearl, but I have never seen such a big water spirit pearl. Then let's take it back and show it to Master. Yi Feifei grabbed the little spirit mouse and stuffed it into his arms. Then, he walked back with Ling Shuang. Fengjiu was resting with his eyes closed. When he heard footsteps, he opened his eyes and saw the two of them walking in. Chapter 4260. Fengjiu took it and looked at it, saying, it's definitely a water spiritual pearl, and it's an extremely rare treasure. Most water spiritual pearls are only the size of an egg yolk, very few are as big as this one. She handed the water spiritual pearl back to her, saying, keep it well. Hearing this, Yi Feifei pushed it back, saying, Master, keep it. It's useless to me. Fengjiu smiled, saying, although this water spiritual pearl is a rare treasure, it's useless to me, so keep it. Maybe it'll be useful in the future. Hearing her words, Yi Feifei put the bead away. Everyone has their own opportunities. This spiritual mouse that you found by chance is really good. Fengjiu glanced at the spiritual mouse that poked its little head out of her arms. Hearing this, Yi Feifei smiled happily, saying, it doesn't have any other abilities, it only knows how to find treasures. Alright, let's rest. Fengjiu gestured, then closed her eyes to rest. Ling Shuang and Yi Feifei saw this, and also rested at the side. The cultivators patrolling outside took turns, and not long after the next group of cultivators patrolled, they heard the ground shake slightly, as if something was coming this way. Not good, it's ferocious beasts. A cultivator shouted, and the cultivators in the tent quickly came out to prepare for battle. There were no towns around them, if there were any, it would be ferocious beasts. It sounds like there are a lot of them, everyone be on guard. Be on guard. Elder Yen shouted in a deep voice, and the cultivators quickly formed a protective circle around them, uniformly protecting the city lord, Fengjiu, and the others in the middle. Hearing the commotion, the city lord, Du Fan, and Wang Yu came out, and after seeing the situation, the city lord shook his head and smiled bitterly, saying, I didn't expect to be attacked by ferocious beasts here. Du Fan took a look. There were dozens of ferocious beasts that looked like bulls, but were not bulls, with hard skin and a sharp horn on their head. They were large and strong, and at this moment, they were charging towards them. Wherever the vicious beasts passed, a cloud of dust was raised. Many trees were destroyed, and the ground trembled slightly because of their heavy footsteps. This is a herd of beasts. Their ranks aren't high, so it'll be easy to deal with them. When Du Fan was about to help with Wang Yu, a little white fox rushed in front of them. It stood on top of the tent, raised its head, and squeaked at the ferocious beasts. Roar! For a moment, the ferocious beasts let out roars and their running hooves abruptly stopped. They looked at the little white fox on top of the tent, and in the next moment, they all let out a low howl and retreated backwards, not daring to take another step forward. Seeing this, the little fox proudly raised its head and puffed its chest out, leaving the hundreds of cultivators standing in the wind in disarray as they looked at the unbelievable scene in front of them in shock. Even the city lord, who had seen a lot, was stunned at this time. He watched in disbelief as the little fox entered Fengzhou's tent. Only then did he recover and look at Du Fan, asking, "Brother Du, that little fox?" The little fox had been following them when they left the city, but he didn't take it seriously, thinking it was just a little fox spirit. Unexpectedly, when the little white fox appeared, those ferocious beasts didn't even dare to fight and retreated backwards. Chapter 4261. That's my master's pet. Du Fan smiled and didn't say much. Oh. The city lord didn't ask any more questions. His tense heart relaxed slightly, and he let out a light sigh. It would be best if they didn't have to fight. If they did, they would inevitably be injured, and it would be troublesome to return. I can't sleep now. Why don't you have a chat with us, city lord? Du Fan said with a smile. He didn't plan to rest anymore, but wanted to talk to him about the Nightless Club. The city lord didn't refuse and returned to the tent to chat with them. Watching them enter the tent, Elder Yen and the others looked on with strange expressions. A little fox could actually scare off those ferocious beasts. What kind of fox was that little fox? How could it be so powerful? Fengzhou and the other two slept in the tent until Du Fan and the others came to wake them up. The group continued on to their destination. A day later, when their group arrived outside a city gate, the city lord smiled and said to Fengzhou beside him, "This is the place. Infinite City is the largest town in this area, and it's also the most prosperous trading city. A few years ago, the population of this city was estimated to be more than 1 million people. The city is divided into 4 gates, east, west, north, and south. We'll enter the east gate from here, which is also the closest city gate to us." Fengzhou nodded and said, "Are all the people we've agreed on waiting here?" "That's right. The meeting place is the city lord's official residence. Allow me to inform Elder Yen and the others, then I'll go with Miss Feng." As he spoke, he turned back to instruct Elder Yen and the other middle-aged leader to lead the group into the city to purchase and trade. Only then did he enter the city with Fengzhou and the others and head towards the city lord's official residence. The group didn't follow them after entering the city. Fengzhou, the city lord, and the others walked into the city and were quickly attracted by the bustle of the city. The sky above the city was also covered by a black net to block out the sun. The temperature in the city was relatively cooler than outside. The people of Infinite City didn't all wear white, but they all wore plain or light-colored clothes. The people here were exposed to the sun all year round, so their skin was usually darker. Even the most beautiful women looked slightly inferior because of their dark skin. Therefore, when Fengzhou and Ling Shuang appeared in the city, whether it was men or women, elderly or children, they all looked at them with amazement and curiosity. Not to mention that the two of them were extremely beautiful, just their skin of ice and jade was something that they rarely saw. Not to mention that one of these two beauties was wearing a dazzling red dress, while the other was wearing a black dress that was cold and elegant. It was difficult for people to not notice them. Although Yi Feifei was also quite beautiful, she paled in comparison to the two's radiance. On top of that, she was slightly tanned from the sun, so she was naturally overlooked. However, she didn't mind and instead looked at the things in the city curiously. She looked around the stalls and quickly caught up with Fengzhou and the others. A few cultivators who were collecting fees at the stalls saw Fengzhou and Ling Shuang, and their eyes lit up with amazement. They nudged the cultivators beside them with their elbows to signal them, then walked forward with the coins in their hands. They didn't even look as they walked, obviously intentionally bumping into Fengzhou and Ling Shuang. Chapter 4262. Bang! She only kicked the person in front of her. The person in front of her flew out and naturally crashed into the people behind him. In a moment, those people all groaned and fell to the ground. She smiled embarrassedly and said, "It seems like I used too much strength." Fengjiu smiled slightly and did not say anything. He only glanced at those people indifferently. "Stinking woman. You dare to kick me." Perhaps it was because he was used to being arrogant in this city, but after being kicked and falling to the ground, he immediately jumped up and waved his fist at Yi Feifei with a fierce look in his eyes. Hitting a woman. Du Fan raised her eyebrows and closed the fan in front of her chest. She did not even move her hand and directly kicked out again. Gotcha! With a cracking sound, that cultivator's fist was kicked by Du Fan's foot. The bone between his thumb and index finger was broken. Suddenly, a shrill scream came out from that cultivator's mouth. "Ah!" That voice broke the bustle and clamor in the surroundings. Everyone turned their heads to look at the source of the voice. When they saw that the cultivator who collected money from the peddlers in the city had his hand broken by a kick, shock and astonishment appeared on their faces. Who are these people? How dare they hit that Tiger Wang? They look unfamiliar. They should be from somewhere else. They even dare to hit the local snake. They are really not afraid of death. Pfft, I think Tiger Wang saw that those two girls were beautiful and wanted to take advantage of them. This time, not only did he not take advantage of them, but he also got his hand broken. This kind of person deserves it. The surrounding people discussed in low voices. Some were worried, some were curious, and some were rejoicing in other people's misfortune. The city lord looked at the person on the ground and frowned. He said to Fengjiu, "Miss Feng, the power in this city is complicated. Let's forget about it and avoid more trouble." "Fine, let's go," Fengjiu said and did not pay attention to that person. Instead, he walked forward with the city lord. "Want to leave? You broke my hand. Do you think you can still leave?" The man stared at Fengjiu and Du Fan with a ferocious expression. "Why don't you ask around? I'm Tiger Wang. Today, none of you can leave." As he shouted, he released a signal from his hand. With a whoosh, it rang out in the air. Seeing this, Fengjiu's lips curled into a faint smile. The city lord frowned and his face darkened. He took a step forward and asked, "Which force are you from?" "Old man, why do you care which faction I'm from? I'm someone you can't afford to offend." The cultivator whose hand was broken shouted in a gloomy voice. He reached out to push the city lord away, but he found that no matter how much strength he used, he couldn't make the city lord take even half a step back. He couldn't help but feel ashamed and angry. He pointed at the city lord and said, You just wait. Don't run if you have the guts." "How dare you?" the city lord shouted in a deep voice. With a flick of his sleeve, he released his pressure. Immediately, the few of them couldn't even stand under the pressure and fell to their knees. "People like you don't deserve to be a cultivator at all," the city lord said in a deep voice. He raised his hand and was about to destroy their cultivation, but he was stopped by Fengjiu. "For people like them, I'll just destroy them." "You don't have to dirty your hands," Fengjiu smiled faintly and glanced at Wang Yu. "Destroy their cultivation." "Yes." Wang Yu responded and immediately destroyed their cultivation. Chapter 4263. The forces in the city were complicated, but not many forces dared to destroy someone's cultivation so casually. Who was this woman in red? What's going on? Two teams came quickly. One was the team of guards in the city, and the other was the people who followed the signal. Fengjiu glanced at them and said to Du Fan, "You guys stay here. We'll go first. See you at the city lord's mansion." "Yes." Du Fan and the others answered. "Why don't I say a few words? Otherwise." The city lord was worried that they would be at a disadvantage because they had fewer people, so he couldn't help but stop. Fengjiu smiled and said, "Don't worry. I don't think anyone in the city is a match for Du Fan and Ling Shuang." Originally, it was enough to leave Du Fan and Wang Yu, but she wanted them to deal with things as soon as possible, so she let Ling Shuang and Yi Feifei stay. With their strength, she didn't worry about anything happening to them. Just as she was thinking, she saw that the little fox had disappeared after entering the city. She didn't know where it went, so she called, "Little Fox." Not long after, the snow-white little fox rushed out of the crowd and jumped directly into Fengjiu's arms, squeaking twice. "Don't run around," Fengjiu said, gently stroking its head and stroking its fur. The city lord glanced at the little fox in Fengjiu's arms and couldn't help but ask curiously, "Miss Feng, what's the rank of your fox?" Fengjiu looked down at the little fox in his arms and smiled, "It's just a wild fox." Seeing this, the city lord didn't ask any more questions. If it was just a wild fox, it wouldn't have the ability to make a group of fierce beasts tremble and leave on their knees. However, even a nascent soul cultivator like him couldn't tell what rank it was. It was really embarrassing. The two of them went to the city lord's mansion. At the same time, 7 or 8 nascent soul cultivators were sitting in the hall and chatting. They were all familiar with each other and had dealings with each other. It was just that it was rare for so many people to gather together, so they chatted and joked with each other. "Ha ha ha, Brother Pingji, I heard that you took in another beautiful concubine last month. You're really lucky with women." "Ha ha 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 ha, Brother Lei, you know that I've always been fond of beauties. There are only a few things I want in life. Now that we have such cultivation, why should we make things difficult for ourselves?" A middle-aged man with a radiant face smiled and said with a radiant smile, "People should treat themselves better." As he spoke, he paused and glanced at him. "I remember that you're all alone right now. Why don't I send you a few beauties later?" Ha 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 ha. When the 7 or 8 people in the hall heard this, they all raised their heads and laughed. The cultivator surnamed Lei shook his head and smiled helplessly. "I appreciate Brother Pingji's good intentions, but I'm not interested in beauties. He had so many great-grandchildren under him, why would he care about beauties?" For people like them who had reached this level of cultivation, if they didn't like beauties, they would generally pay more attention to cultivation. With his status as an ancestor in the family, if he wanted any beauties, wouldn't it be just a matter of words? Chapter 42-64. Hearing this, everyone shook their heads. One of them said, "He only told us that he would bring a few friends with him. He didn't say anything else. However, I think that since Old Man Gu is a calm person, the people he brought shouldn't be too bad. They might even lend us a hand." "Yes, I think so too." The other person nodded and said, "By the way, haven't they arrived yet?" Everyone looked at each other and looked at the city lord who was sitting in the main seat. "Brother Jiang, did they say when they would arrive?" "Hee hee." City Lord Jiang stroked his beard and smiled. 2 days ago, I heard from old Gu that they would arrive today. Even if they haven't entered the city yet, they shouldn't be too far away." Hearing this, everyone nodded. "That's good." Just as they were talking, the housekeeper hurried over and reported, City Lord Gu is here." "Oh." City Lord Jiang chuckled and said to everyone, "Look, they're already here. Come in, come in." Outside, City Lord Gu and Fengjiu walked towards the main hall together. Before they entered, they could hear the laughter in the hall. The two of them walked in and the city lord cupped his hands and smiled at everyone. "Everyone, I'm late. Sorry for making you wait." However, everyone's eyes were attracted to Fengjiu, who was dressed in red and holding a little white fox. These nascent soul cultivators had seen their fair share of beauties, but they had never seen someone as beautiful as the one in front of them. Her beauty was breathtaking and dazzling. For a moment, everyone's eyes were filled with amazement. Among them, the nascent soul cultivator named Pingji was the most shocked. Everyone saw that she was dressed in red and dazzling. They couldn't find a better word to describe her beautiful face. They only knew that as she walked in, the entire hall was lit up. Her expression was indifferent, her clear eyes were indifferent, and there was a faint smile on her lips. Her expression was lazy and casual. She held a snow-white little fox in her arms and stood there quietly, showing off what it meant to be peerless in a generation. Looking at her, everyone in the hall couldn't help but stand up. This was because there was an aura of nobility emanating from her body. It was a mysterious and unfathomable aura that made others not dare to put on airs in front of her. Old Gu, this is. Everyone looked at Lord Gu, wanting him to introduce them. He, this is the friend I told you about. Her surname is Feng, and I call her Miss Feng. Gu Qing smiled and said, there are still a few people who were delayed by some matters. They will arrive later. City Lord Gu could understand everyone's stunned expressions. After all, when he first met her, he was also like them. However, he believed that these old friends of his would be able to tell that Miss Feng wasn't simple. Thus, there was no need for him to say anything. So it's Miss Feng. The middle-aged cultivator named Pingji smiled and cupped his hands. Miss Feng, I'm Yuan Pingji. Fengjiu nodded slightly and smiled back. Let me introduce you. Lord Gu smiled and said to Fengjiu, this is the city lord of Infinite City, Jiang Henglin. This is Lei Yao. And this is... Chapter 4265. No. Come, have a seat. Yuan Pingji smiled and extended his hand to invite her to sit. He said, this Qilin mountain is extremely dangerous. Why would Miss Feng want to go there? When old Gu introduced her, he only said that her surname was Feng and did not even mention her name. Everyone present was smart and knew that she did not want people to ask too much. Hence, they did not ask anything else and only asked about her purpose. Fengjiu was led by Gu Qing to a seat and sat down. He then said, I heard that there is an ancient Qilin beast in the Qilin mountain. I also want to see it. I heard from Gu Qing that everyone will be going to the Qilin mountain, so I asked him to bring us along. Us? An old man stroked his beard. Then, as if he remembered something, he smiled and said, oh, right. I just heard from old Gu that there are still a few people who have not arrived and were delayed on the way. May I know who those people are? Fengjiu smiled and said, they are the people around me. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other. They wanted to say something but did not. If they brought Miss Feng alone, it would not be a problem. After all, she did not look weak. However, if they brought the people around her, would they not have to take care of them? This would slow down their journey and would not be of any help to their trip. They wanted to refuse but felt that it was not good. Hence, they suppressed their thoughts and thought that they would discuss it later or see how strong those people were. The few of them chatted in the hall. They drank tea and talked about the plan. After a long time, just as they were about to disperse and rest, they heard the housekeeper report. Governor, the other guests have arrived. Because of the previous instructions, the housekeeper brought Du Fan and the others in when they arrived. Oh. They are here. Then invite them in. The governor said. He did not know what kind of people they were, so he did not lack the necessary etiquette. Du Fan and the others walked in. They bowed to Fengjiu and called out, Master. Then, they looked at the others in the hall and sized them up quietly. When they came in, everyone in the hall was also sizing them up. They thought that they would be from Miss Feng's family, but they did not expect to hear them call Fengjiu master. This made them even more surprised. Because these people were excellent in appearance and bearing. No one would doubt that they were from aristocratic families. Moreover, their cultivation did not seem weak, but they called Miss Feng master. This made them secretly wonder, where did Miss Feng come from? Why were all the people around her so outstanding? This is City Lord Jiang of Infinite City. The others are the nascent soul cultivators who came with us this time, Feng Jiu introduced briefly. Seeing this, Du Fan and the others cupped their hands and bowed slightly. Greetings, everyone. The nascent soul realm cultivators nodded slightly in acknowledgement. They did not get up and did not pay too much attention to them. In their opinion, they might not be weak, but they were only stronger than them. In addition, they were the elders of their families. Naturally, they did not need to be too courteous to these juniors. Chapter 4266. Fengjiu and the others left with the housekeeper. Just as Gu Cheng was about to follow, he was pulled back by someone. He turned around and saw them giving him a look. He then looked at Fengjiu and the others. Seeing that they were already far away, he asked, "What's wrong? Is there anything else?" The corners of their mouths twitched. They glanced at him speechlessly and said, "You're planning to leave just like that? Shouldn't you have a good talk with us?" Gu Cheng was startled. He smiled and said, "What else do you want to say?" "I've already said what I wanted to say." Ruan Pingji pulled him to the side and sat down. He said, Come. Tell us, where did you get to know Miss Feng? Where is she from? Why did you only say her surname is Feng and didn't even say her name? What's your relationship with her? Also, you." Hearing his endless questions, Gu Cheng was speechless. He interrupted him and said, "That's enough." He looked at him with a serious expression and said, "Pingji, I'm warning you. Don't put your thoughts on Miss Feng. She's not someone you and I can provoke. Don't even provoke the people around her, let alone her." Hearing this, everyone was startled. It was rare to see him so serious. For a moment, even Ruan Pingji quieted down and thought carefully about his words. City Lord Jiang then said, "Old Gu, don't worry. Pingji knows what to do. However, what's Miss Feng's background? Shouldn't you at least tell us a little bit?" "That's right. You suddenly said that you were going to bring a few friends over. We thought that you were going to meet some nascent soul cultivators, but we didn't expect them to be so young. You should at least tell us a little bit about them so we can know where they came from." Another person spoke up, his gaze landing on Lord Gu. Seeing that they were all looking at him, wanting to know about Fengjiu and the others from him, City Lord Gu couldn't help but sigh. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. "If I knew, I wouldn't hide it from you. The problem is, I really don't know what you're asking. I don't know which family she's from, nor do I know where she came from. I also don't know what her name is. I only know that they're not from our world, and they're very strong. I really don't know anything else." Cultivators from other worlds. City Lord Jiang was slightly startled. How did they come here? Can we communicate with other worlds here? That's impossible. That's right. Cultivators from other worlds can't come here, right? If it was possible, we would have gone to other worlds to take a look. Why would we stay here all the time? Another person also spoke. An old man who hadn't spoken all this time pondered and said, "Could it be that they have some kind of teleportation treasure on them?" All right, don't make wild guesses. They came here by accident. As for the rest, don't ask or talk about it. If they don't want to talk about it, don't ask either. Just remember my words and don't provoke them." As City Lord Gu spoke, he stood up and prepared to walk out. However, when he stepped out of the door, he stopped and looked back at City Lord Jiang. He wanted to say something but hesitated. Chapter 4267. Hearing his words, Lord Guqing said, "Send someone to the city to inquire about it." As he spoke, he didn't say anything else and walked out. Inquire about it? Inquire about what? The people in the hall looked at each other, not knowing what he meant. Lord Jiang paused for a moment, then called someone in. After giving some instructions, he said to several people, "You go and have a rest first." Seeing that there was nothing else to do, everyone nodded and walked out. They only said, "If you find out anything, remember to let us know." On the other side, after Fingzhou and others came to the place to rest and waited for the housekeeper to leave, Du Fan told Fingzhou about the matter. That Wang Laohu is a member of an underground force in the city. That team didn't want to settle the matter peacefully, so we beat them at their own game and let them take him to the place of the underground force. This force mostly relies on strength to do evil. Many forces in the city don't dare to confront them head-on because this force has a nascent soul stage ancestor. So after we found the underground force and saw that they didn't intend to stop, we abolished the strength and cultivation of the nascent soul stage ancestor. Now, the strongest person in this force is only a practitioner at the peak of the gold core stage, which is not enough to run rampant in the city. Hearing this, Fingzhou nodded, "Well, as long as the matter is handled well." Then, she glanced at Wang Yu and said, "You can leave now." "Yes." Wang Yu responded and then left. He knew that after all, he was not her subordinate, and there were many things that she avoided him. Fingzhou motioned Du Fan and others to sit down, and then asked, "What did you find about the book I asked you to check?" She asked while playing with the soft snow-white fur of the little fox lying on her lap. "I was thinking of finding a time to report this matter to the master." Du Fan smiled and said, "I did manage to obtain some information from the ancient city lord's treasure trove. According to the records, there is indeed a Qilin beast in the Qilin mountain. It is the contracted beast of the sovereign of this world. It is not much different from what the ancient city lord said. It's just that the battle between the two monarchs has been erased. I don't know who the other monarch is. I searched through the ancient books but couldn't find any relevant information. However, there's a poem that I think might be the hiding place of the ancient Qilin. Moreover, it seems that Master is destined to come here." "Oh. What poem?" Fingzhou asked curiously. "It was written by a cultivator who was proficient in divination. There was a poem recorded in the broken ancient book. The ancient Qilin beast dwelled in a lava cave and slept for 10,000 years. There will be a time when it will awaken. And at the end of this 5-character poem, there are a few words: strange stars move, Phoenix Lord appears." Hearing this, Fingzhou was slightly surprised. The world is really full of strange things. Moreover, the ability is not human. Separated by heaven and earth, who knew that she would appear at this time? Moreover, she encountered the ancient Qilin beast here. It could only be said that the person who could predict the destiny was too powerful. Du Fan nodded and said, "It's just that I didn't see the lava cave in the Qilin mountain on the map, and I asked the ancient city lord. He didn't seem to have seen the poem and the words I read. Moreover, he said that there was no lava cave in the Qilin mountain." Chapter 4268. Fengzhou smiled and said, "Wait until we reach the Qilin mountain to look for this magma land. We'll find it eventually. But what's up with the Nightless Club's son? Did you find any clues about it? The records in the ancient books are the same as what the ancient city lord said. There's no difference, and there's no way to break it." Du Fan said. Hearing this, Fengzhou pondered slightly. "So it's like this. Then it's not easy to do." "Master, why is it not easy? You're not the Lord of heaven and earth, right? You should have the ability to do it." Yi Feifei said. In her opinion, her master was omnipotent. "It's not that easy. If I don't find the problem, I can't do anything." Fengzhou sighed softly. She held her chin with one hand and looked at Du Fan. Her eyes flashed and said, "However, if I become the Lord of heaven and earth, maybe I can break the curse of the other lords." Seeing her staring at him, Du Fan was startled and said, "Master, you don't want me to take over here, do you?" Fengzhou smiled, although this place is not as prosperous as other places, if the curse is broken, everything in this world will be restored. With your strength, it's more than enough to be the Lord of heaven and earth. Don't you want to think about it? Du Fan shook his head and smiled helplessly. Master, let me go. I don't want to be the Lord of heaven and earth. I'm just thinking that Leng Hua will be your housekeeper, and I'll be your Lord of heaven and earth. As for other things, I'm not very interested. He didn't want to be the Lord of heaven and earth. Otherwise, he would have had the chance long ago. In his opinion, being the Lord of heaven and earth was better than anything else. Worried that his master would have ideas about him again, he smiled and said, Master, if you really don't want to take over, then when we go back in the future, one of Luo Yu and the others can take over. Besides Qi Kong, there are 7 other people who can take over. All right. We'll talk about this later. You guys go and rest. Feng Zhou stood up with a smile and walked towards one of the rooms. The 3 people looked at each other and went to rest. Even though the city was big, it was easy to find out if something big had happened. Thus, when City Lord Jiang found out about what had happened outside, he understood why Lord Gu Qing had asked him to gather information. After receiving the news, he went to Gu City Lord's room. They sat and drank tea and chatted. The people I sent came back. In addition to Wang Hu and the others, their cultivation, the cultivation of the ancestor of the underground force, the cultivation of the nascent soul stage ancestor of the ancestor of heaven and earth was abolished. Not only I got the news, but also the cultivation of the nascent soul ancestor, the ancestor with the master with Lord. When he heard that the cultivation of the nascent soul stage ancestor of the underground force had been crippled by Du Fan, City Lord Gu's face was also filled with astonishment. His cultivation was actually crippled? How can he be so powerful? To be able to go to that underground force, cripple the cultivation of the old ancestor, and then leave unscathed, their strength and cultivation must be really strong. City Lord Jiang sighed with emotion. He was a little glad that he hadn't mishandled the situation. Chapter 4269. They rested in the City Lord's mansion for a day. After preparing everything they needed, they set off on their flying swords towards the Qilin mountain. A few days later, they stopped in front of a dense forest. At this time, the 7 or 8 nascent soul stage cultivators were a little tired because of the long journey. When they looked at Feng Zhou and the others, they couldn't help but be secretly surprised. Except for Yi Feifei and Wang Yu who looked a little tired, the other 3 still looked the same and didn't even sweat much. Moreover, after so many days, the 3 of them looked as if the sun couldn't reach them. Their skin was still the same and there was no trace of sunburn or tanning. The Lord of Goose City was fine. He had seen how extraordinary they were and wasn't too surprised. Therefore, he looked at Feng Zhou and said, Miss Feng, after passing through the dense forest in front of us, we will reach the Qilin mountain. Yes. Feng Zhou responded and glanced at them. The dense forest in front of us is cooler. Why don't we rest there for a while? I have the same idea. The nascent soul stage cultivator surnamed Lei said, let's go ahead and drink some water. We will reach the Qilin mountain soon. There's no hurry. Therefore, they went to the dense forest and found a place to rest. Sitting down under the tree, Feng Zhou looked at the people drinking water and asked, where do you plan to start looking? Sitting opposite her, Wan Pingji saw her words and said, the Qilin mountain range is connected by mountains. We have searched the mountain range in front of us a few years ago. This time, we plan to go deeper into the forest to search. Hearing this, Feng Zhou nodded and asked, is there any place in the Qilin mountain with magma? Magma? No, right? This place is a chain of mountains, how can there be a magma field? Everyone looked at each other in dismay, a little surprised. Seeing this, Feng Zhou didn't say anything more. She just took out water from the space and drank it while thinking. If there was magma, there wouldn't be any grass growing. It shouldn't be difficult to find it. At that moment, she said, Du Fan, take out the map. Du Fan stepped forward and took out the map from the space. He spread it out in front of her and said, Master, do you want me and Ling Shuang to take them to search separately? Let me look at the terrain here first. Fengzhou said, looking carefully at the map. After finding their current location, she spread out to check the surroundings. Have you been to this mountain? Fengzhou asked Elder Gu. Elder Gu took a look and shook his head. Then, he asked, Fengzhou. It's not special at all. I think we'll know after seeing it. That's a bare mountain. There's nothing to see there. There's not even a place to hide. The ancient Qilin won't be there. One of them said and pointed in another direction. We plan to go there. The forest there is lush. If there is a Qilin beast, it should be hiding there. Seeing this, Fengzhou said, if that's the case, let's split into two. You go there and look, and we'll go here. If we don't find anything, we'll go to your side. It shouldn't take too much time. Chapter 4270. Hearing this, Fengzhou could not help but smile. No need, just the few of us are enough. You guys go ahead first, if we don't find anything, we will follow. But Ruanpingji wanted to say something but was interrupted by Gu Qing. Alright, then you guys be careful. You know our direction, if you don't find anything there, come here to find us. Alright then. You guys be careful, there are many ferocious beasts in this forest, if you encounter any danger, you can send us a signal. Ruanpingji instructed. From his point of view, they were all young people and probably did not have much experience in such a place, their adaptability was not as strong as theirs. Alright. Fengzhou replied with a smile, looking at Du Fan and the rest, let's go. We'll go take a look first. Yes. They replied and stood up. Then we'll go first, if we don't find anything, we'll meet again. Fengzhou nodded at Gu Qing and the rest. Be careful. Gu Qing said, watching them leave before sitting down again. Seeing them leave, Ruanpingji seemed to have thought of something, slapping his forehead. This elder Jiang said he was going to find some information, but in the end, he did not tell us anything. Old Gu, what did you mean by what you said that day? What did you ask Elder Jiang to find out? Gu Cheng's eyes flashed, looking at them, you guys don't know. We don't know. Everyone shook their heads, waiting for him to continue, who knew that he would say, if you don't know, then forget it, there's nothing to say. Instantly, everyone felt their breath being hung up, stuck in their throats, neither going up nor down, it was very uncomfortable. On the other side, Fengzhou and the rest left for the mountain peak. On the way, Du Fan asked, Master, do you think that the ancient Qilin beast is at that mountain peak? On the map, the surrounding mountains more or less have trees, only that mountain peak does not have a single blade of grass. Maybe it's because of the different geology, or maybe it's because there's magma underground. As for whether the ancient Qilin beast is there, we have to go take a look to know. Fengzhou said slowly. His footsteps were extremely fast, and the few people behind him followed closely. After the few of them passed through the forest, they went over 3 more mountains before they saw the barren mountain peak. They stood on their flying swords and looked down from above. The surrounding mountains were intertwined with one another, and in the middle, there was a barren mountain peak. Not only was there no grass growing on the mountain peak, even a large area around the foot of the mountain was barren. Let's go down and take a look. Fengzhou said as he descended from the sky. With a tap of his foot, he withdrew the flying feather and landed on the mountain peak. Standing on the peak, he could feel the heat emitted from below. Obviously, this place was hotter than other places. Even the soil was faintly emitting heat. There was not even a single ferocious beast in sight. This kind of place is naturally barren. If I'm not wrong, the magma should be at the foot of this mountain peak, underground, and the ancient Chilean beast should also be hiding here. Fengjiu said as he stared at the place below his feet. The ancient Chilean beast was here. Chapter 4271. Fengjiu looked down and asked, Du Fan, what do you think is different about the surrounding terrain? Du Fan was startled and looked down. He took a serious look and was stunned. This place uses the surrounding mountains as a formation to trap the bald mountain in the middle. If we didn't look down from above, we wouldn't be able to see that there is a strange formation here. The formation below should be a trapping formation, but it's much more complicated than a normal trapping formation. As he spoke, he looked at Fengjiu. With my cultivation in formations, I won't be able to break this formation in a short time. However, if you give me some time, I should be able to break it. Fengjiu nodded. That's right. There is indeed a strange trapping formation here to seal the ancient Chilean beast. However, with the surrounding mountains and trees, it's hard to tell. Her gaze swept downwards, and she caught a glimpse of the little fox that was wandering about, looking around, and then looked up again. Seeing this, she smiled and said to the people beside her, I'll break this formation. You guys guard the surrounding areas, but be careful. Remember that this is a land of magma. I'm guessing that the ancient Chilean beast is sleeping here. If the seal is broken and it wakes up, it will probably stir. If it does, the magma underground will definitely gush out. When that happens, you have to prevent the ancient Chilean beast from escaping. You also have to avoid being injured by the magma. Hearing her words, everyone immediately replied, Yes, we understand. They were about to head down when they heard the rumbling sounds of battle from a distance. They looked back in surprise and saw that there was an extremely strong airflow in the distance. It seemed that the commotion was not small. Master, that direction seems to be where Gu Qing and the others are. Du Fan said as his gaze fell on the distance. They were standing in the air a few mountains away and could see the airflow in the distance. It seemed that there was a fierce battle over there. Master, should we go and take a look? Leng Shuang asked. Fengjiu looked down at the mountain peak, then looked into the distance and said, Let's go. Let's see what happened to them. I'll go first. You guys follow me. As soon as she finished speaking, she shot off into the distance like a bolt of lightning. When Du Fan and Leng Shuang saw this, they followed suit. However, it was still quite a distance away after all. No matter how fast he was, it was impossible for him to reach there in a short time. At the same time, a group of black-robed demonic cultivators surrounded the 7 or 8 nascent soul cultivators. These black-robed demonic cultivators were all at least at the nascent soul stage. Lord Gu and company were not their match at all. They resisted with all their might. In the air, the sword energy whizzed past. The sharp sword energy cut down the surrounding trees. The sound of the sword energy striking the ground could be heard from time to time. Gu Qing and the others were wearing light-colored robes. At this moment, blood stained their robes. It was a ghastly sight. Under the attacks of the demonic cultivators, they were greatly alarmed. They stood back to back against the enemy. Chapter 4272. How is it? Are you still unwilling to surrender to us? If you don't surrender to us, then what awaits you is only death. Lord Gu and the others felt a chill in their hearts. They clenched the swords in their hands and stared at the leader. Good and evil cannot coexist. We are righteous cultivators. How can we wallow in the mire with you demonic cultivators? That's right. Cultivator Lei shouted in a deep voice and stared at them sternly. We don't know where you came from, but it's impossible for us to surrender to your demon lord. Ruanpingji stared at the demonic cultivator and shouted, Demonic cultivators rarely appear in our Nightless Club. Where did you all come from? What are your intentions for trying to win us over? Ha! You frogs at the bottom of a well. How could you have heard of the Black Lotus Demon Lord's prestige? Now, my lord wants to expand and has taken a fancy to this inconspicuous nightless club. That's your honor. Since you refuse to obey my kind words, I can only kill all of you. The demonic cultivator's voice fell. He raised his hand and stared at Lord Gu and the others. Leave no one alive. Yes. As soon as the voice of the demonic cultivator fell, the surrounding 20 demonic cultivators immediately rushed forward and attacked the few people in the middle with cold sword chi. The spiritual aura on their bodies carried the unique black fog of demonic cultivators. The sword chi swept and the airflow surged. The black fog also fluctuated in the air and surged upward. Fengzhou came from afar. When he saw the black fog in the distance, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Demonic cultivators. This place could be said to be an extremely remote place where birds don't lay eggs. There was only day all year round and no night. The spiritual power was lacking. The cultivators here didn't have high cultivation, and demonic cultivators were even rarer. He didn't expect to see demonic cultivators with strength above the nascent soul stage. It seemed that they came from other places. Perhaps they didn't expect that there would be people here, or they didn't expect that someone would dare to come here. Those demonic cultivators' attention was on Lord Gu and the others. Therefore, they didn't notice Fengzhou coming from afar. I can't hold on any longer. A nascent soul cultivator gasped for breath. His face was pale and his footsteps were messy. He swung his sword to block the attack of a demonic cultivator, but he couldn't hold on any longer and fell to his knees, using the sword in his hand to support himself. There were several wounds on his body that were so deep that his bones could be seen. He had lost too much blood and his physical strength couldn't hold on any longer. In addition, the demonic cultivators were closing in on him step by step, each of their attacks taking his life. If the other party's strength was on par with theirs, then it would be fine. But as it happened, there were some among them whose strength was above theirs even if they were at the nascent soul stage. This made it so that they had no chance of winning at all. Even if they gave it their all, it would be difficult for them to survive. Unless you want to die here. Otherwise, you have to hold on even if you can't hold on. Yuan Pingji swung his sword at a demonic cultivator, protecting his old friend who was half kneeling on the ground. Lord Gu fought against 2 demonic cultivators by himself. Almost every time they exchanged blows, there would be an additional wound on his body. He also retreated step by step and his speed gradually slowed down. When he saw a sharp sword piercing towards his throat, a powerful pressure suppressed him. At that moment, he couldn't even react to block it. He could only watch as the sharp sword pierced towards him and watched as he fell into a desperate situation. Chapter 42-73. Bang! He fell backwards and landed on the ground with a bang. The surrounding demonic cultivators were so shocked that they stopped what they were doing and looked around cautiously. It was only then that they noticed a red figure standing in midair not too far away. To Lord Gu Qing, this narrow escape from death touched his heart greatly. Especially when he saw the red figure standing on top of the flying feather, the shock in his heart was indescribable. Just a moment ago, he thought that he was going to die without a doubt. In the next moment, the demonic cultivator who wanted to kill him died in front of him. This reversal made him take a deep breath and suppress the fluctuating emotions in his heart. The other nascent soul cultivators widened their eyes. They didn't think that Lady Feng would dare to come here alone. Immediately, Ruan Pingji shouted, "Lady Feng, quickly leave. You're not their match." The corners of Fengzhou's lips curled up slightly and she smiled faintly. Her gaze swept across Lord Gu Qing and the others below. Her gaze turned and swept past the demonic cultivators. She sneered, "I was wondering who it was. So it's demonic cultivators. However, what are you demonic cultivators doing here?" Her Her voice was languid and carried a hint of carelessness. That last sound of hers was filled with a dangerous aura, causing people to involuntarily shiver. When the demonic cultivator in the lead saw Fingzhou, his eyes widened in fear and he quickly retreated as if he had seen a venomous snake or a ferocious beast. He was aghast. Fingzhou. Slap. A gust of wind shot out from her palm and slapped the demonic cultivator's face, sending him flying. At the same time, a lazy and cold voice came out from her mouth. Is my name something you can call out directly? Her aura filled the sky and her aura was mighty without being angry. She stood there quietly, but it was enough to shock everyone, causing the demonic cultivators to be overwhelmed with shock and fear. Lord Guqing, Ruan Pingji, and the others looked at her in shock. They didn't expect her to be able to instantly kill a demonic cultivator who was stronger than them. They also didn't expect the demonic cultivator in the lead to be unable to retaliate in front of her. Furthermore, he recognized her. Fingzhou. Was Miss Fang's name Fingzhou? What was so special about this name? Why were these devil cultivators so terrified? The demonic cultivator who was hit by the palm wind wanted to stand up. However, before he could stand up, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Pooh! He looked in horror at the red figure that was slowly descending from the sky. He could not believe that he would meet the ghost Dr. Fingzhou in such a remote place. Wasn't she nowhere to be found? Hadn't she been silent for a long time? Why would he appear here? What was she doing here? Thoughts flashed through his mind one after another. However, very quickly, his face turned pale. This was because he saw her descending from the sky and walking towards him step by step. Speak. What are you doing here? Fengzhou's clear eyes narrowed as a powerful pressure enveloped the body of the devil cultivator in the lead. We're going to die anyway. Rather than being killed by you, I'd rather end my own life. The leader of the demonic cultivators said. He was so frightened by Fingzhou that his face turned pale. He gritted his teeth and clapped his hands towards the top of his head. Chapter 42-74. Let's fight it out with her. One of the demonic cultivators saw that she was glaring at them and immediately pounced forward, attacking Fingzhou. You overestimate yourself. Fingzhou snorted coldly. With a flick of her sleeve, a strong gust of air rushed out and slashed across their throats like a sharp blade. In the blink of an eye, the 10 demonic cultivators who pounced forward all died in front of her. We were only following orders. Seeing this, one of the demonic cultivators knelt down with weak legs. Among them, some did not know about the ghost Dr. Fingzhou, but he knew. Once they fell into her hands, he knew that they had no chance of survival. Following orders from the Devil Master? Fingzhou raised her brows and said, where is his hiding place now? Tell me clearly and I can leave your corpse intact. Otherwise, I have ways to make you suffer a fate worse than death. Fear flashed across the demonic cultivator's eyes and he said in a trembling voice, his hiding place. Bang! Before he could finish speaking, he saw a gust of air explode with a bang, instantly blowing the demonic cultivator into pieces and killing him without a complete corpse. Seeing this, Fingzhou narrowed her eyes. She had actually used a blood curse. Seeing this, the other demonic cultivators were shocked. Without waiting for Fingzhou to react, they raised their hands and slapped the top of their heads. Rather than dying without a complete corpse, they would rather end their own lives. In an instant, screams and groans were heard. One by one, the demonic cultivators in black stiffened and fell to the ground, ending their lives. They would never have thought that this mission, which they thought would be easy to complete, would become difficult because of Fingzhou's appearance. They also did not expect that this would be their burial ground. Gu Qing and the other nascent soul cultivators stared blankly at the scene in front of them. No one could react. What was going on? Why did these demonic cultivators, who had almost taken their lives, end their own lives the moment she appeared? Du Fan and the rest came one after another. When they saw the dead demonic cultivators on the ground, they were slightly surprised. Who would have thought that it would be demonic cultivators causing trouble here? Lord Gu, you have injuries on your bodies. Treat them first. Fengzhou said as he withdrew his aura and looked at Lord Gu and the others. Only then did they come back to their senses. They looked at each other, then cupped their hands and bowed respectfully to Fengzhou. Thank you for saving our lives, Miss Feng. If she hadn't come, they would probably have died here. It's nothing. Don't take it to heart. Fengzhou said as he looked at Du Fan and the others. Check if there are any clues on them. Yes, Du Fan and the others responded, and went forward to collect the devil cultivator's belongings, carefully inspecting them. Lord Gu and the others helped each other to the side and sat down. They wanted to treat their wounds first, but they found that their injuries were quite severe. Some of the wounds caused them to break out in cold sweat when they moved slightly. Yi Feifei saw that they were heavily injured and said to Fengzhou, Master, let me help them clean their wounds. Go. Fengzhou nodded. Hence, Yi Feifei quickly walked forward and said, Let me help you. Thank you, Mississippi, the few of them hurriedly said. Fengzhou looked at the corpses on the ground and pondered. A few years ago, the Black Lotus of Destruction fell into the hands of the Devil Master. A few years later, who knew how powerful the Devil Master was now? Chapter 4275. As for the Black Lotus of Destruction, she had to think of a way to purify and subdue it. Otherwise, if it fell into the hands of evil demons, it would only harm the world. Perhaps the smell of blood had spread with the wind and attracted some ferocious beasts. Several ferocious beasts let out ferocious roars as they stared at Fengzhou and the others. Fengzhou glanced at them and released his ancient aura. Those ferocious beasts could not help but howl as they retreated step by step. Seeing this scene, Yuan Pingji and the others did not show any strange expressions on their faces. However, they were extremely shocked and could not help but look at Fengzhou in red. Fengzhou walked towards them. Seeing that they were all heavily injured, he said, You'd better go back first with your injuries. Otherwise, something might happen here. Hearing this, they looked at each other but did not say anything. Gu Qing said, Miss Feng, those demonic cultivators earlier said that they wanted us to submit to their Black Lotus Demon Lord. It seems that the Black Lotus Demon Lord wants this land. Furthermore, I feel that since there are demonic cultivators eyeing us, there might be demonic cultivators from other places looking for them. Fengzhou nodded and said, I know. After you go back, tell your subordinates to pay more attention to the movements of the other factions. Also, investigate if there are any demonic cultivators. Okay. They responded. Seeing that they were heavily injured and could not stay, they said, Then we'll go back first. We'll wait for Miss Feng at City Lord Zhang's place. Fengzhou responded and watched them leave while supporting each other. Then, he turned to Du Fan and the others and said, Let's go. Du Fan and the others glanced at the departing people before following Fengzhou into the air and flew towards the bald mountain. Perhaps sensing their departure, Yuan Pingji and the others could not help but stop in their tracks. They looked at those figures and muttered, I wonder who they are. At first, they thought that he was just a descendant of an aristocratic family. However, from the looks of it now, he was probably a high and mighty figure that they had to look up to. On the other side, Fengzhou and the rest once again arrived at the bald mountain. The little fox was scurrying around at the foot of the mountain. When it saw Fengzhou and the rest return, it squeaked twice. Fengzhou estimated that lava would spurt out if he wanted to break the formation here. Therefore, he flicked his sleeve and put it into the space, letting it stay there. Spread out. Fengzhou looked at them and ordered them to spread out in different directions. Du Fan and the others followed his orders and spread out, each taking a position to guard the area. They were only waiting for the moment the formation was activated so that they could lend their master a helping hand. Fengjiu stood in the air, her hands forming a complicated seal in front of her. Following the surge of spiritual energy from her body and the activation of the formation, a patch of dark clouds suddenly gathered in the sky. Lightning refracted from the dark clouds with a cracking sound, and a sudden clap of thunder boomed above her head. She glanced at it but did not stop her hands. Instead, she chanted softly and sped up the formation of the formation. However, at this moment, a sharp cry came from above her head. In the next moment, a purple lightning bolt struck towards her from the clouds above. "Master, be careful!" Du Fan and the others below cried out in alarm. Just as they were about to leap into the air, they heard Fengjiu's voice, "Stand there and don't move." Hearing her words, they did not move and only looked at the purple figure that suddenly flapped its wings and flew out from the dark clouds. Chapter 4276. A sharp cry came out along with the giant eagle's cry, and a powerful wind blade with the unique pressure of a divine beast attacked Fengjiu below. It was as fast as a gust of wind. Purple lightning eagle. A divine beast. Fengjiu raised her eyebrows slightly, and a touch of surprise flashed through her eyes. She didn't expect such a thing to be hidden in this place. Purple lightning eagles were rare, and lightning eagles were even rarer, not to mention a divine beast. Looking at the purple lightning eagle that flapped its wings and flew out from the dark clouds, she smiled. This divine beast came to me on its own accord. As soon as her voice fell, she turned her hands, and the array that had just been condensed dissipated in her palms. Then, she turned her palms and condensed a stream of air to attack the majestic purple lightning eagle that was pouncing over. Not to mention her, even Du Fan and Ling Shuang had been restraining their auras and concealing their strength and cultivation. Now that they had met someone who thought they were easy to bully, they had delivered themselves to their doorstep. If she didn't release the ancient pressure, she was just like an ordinary cultivator. It was no wonder that the lightning eagle dared to attack her so boldly. If it knew that she had the ancient pressure to suppress divine beasts, the lightning eagle probably wouldn't have pounced on her so ferociously. The lightning vulture's powerful wings flapped with wind blades. It was at that moment that the lightning vulture reached out its claws to grab Fengjiu. However, it was sent flying by the airflow condensed in her palms. The vulture's body tumbled backward a few times before crashing to the ground. Bang! The moment it fell to the ground, the lightning eagle lay on the ground. It propped up its head in horror and looked at the red-clothed human who was coming toward it. Ancient pressure. Almost the moment the voice fell, its first reaction was to escape, especially when it saw the red figure rushing over. It quickly flapped its wings, flew up, and fled into the distance. Want to escape? Fengjiu's lips curled up. Since you're here, don't even think about escaping. As soon as her voice fell, she flicked her sleeves and chased after it. Seeing this, Du Fan and the others couldn't help but look at each other. Wang Yu said, "How can there be a divine beast-level lightning eagle in this place? This kind of eagle is very rare. It's not like there's nothing in a remote place." Du Fan smiled and looked at the distant sky where a man and an eagle were fighting. Bolts of lightning struck towards their master, but were easily dodged by their master. Looking at the lightning eagle fleeing in all directions in fear, he laughed softly and shook his head. This lightning eagle won't be able to escape. A rare creature like this was something that could only be chanced upon by luck. Since he had encountered it, he naturally wouldn't allow it to leave. That lightning eagle seems to be guarding this place. As Ling Shuang spoke, he looked at the dark clouds in the sky. It should be said that it's guarding this formation. Yes, that's possible, Du Fan nodded and said, just now, it was Master who activated the array that caused the lightning eagle to appear. Yi Feifei looked into the distance in amazement and said, I see that purple eagle is flying so fast. Can Master catch it? Chapter 4277. Fengjiu did not directly use her aura to suppress it. Instead, she wanted to tame it. Only by taming it would it willingly submit and obediently restrain its temper. She had many contracted beasts. Therefore, when she saw this lightning condor, she planned to tame it and make it Feifei's contracted beast. Among the people around her, Feifei's fighting strength was the weakest and its rank was the lowest. In addition, her little spirit mouse was only a treasure-hunting spirit mouse and did not have any fighting strength. If she added this lightning condor, they would complement each other perfectly. That lightning condor was being chased and beaten by her. She clearly had an ancient aura, but she did not suppress it. Instead, she played with it as if she was toying with it. It could not help but flap its wings and fly up angrily. It opened its mouth and angrily asked, "You human, you clearly have an ancient aura but you don't suppress this king. You also won't let this king leave. What are you trying to do?" Fengzhou chuckled and said, "This king. You still dare to call yourself this king in front of me?" As her voice fell, she flipped her hand and a ball of flame jumped in her palm. "How about I let you have a taste of my natal flame?" With a flick of her palm, the flame flew out and burned the lightning condor's tail. The flame was not big. It was about the size of a candle's flame. However, the lightning condor could not dodge and was burned until it screamed. "This fire, why can't this fire be extinguished? Why can't it be extinguished?" It panicked and used its wings to beat at the flames, but found that its wings could not extinguish the flames. It could only feel the hair on its tail sizzling as it was burned. It could not help but roar in a flustered and exasperated manner. "Human! What are you trying to do? Quickly extinguish this fire. I want you to submit," Fengzhou said. He looked at it and said, "You should know my strength. If you don't submit, then only death awaits you. Don't you already have an ancient divine beast? What else do you want me to do?" The lightning condor roared angrily as it scratched at the flames on its tail. "Who said I want to contract myself?" Fengzhou coldly glanced at it and said, "I just happen to have someone who needs a lightning condor like you. I plan to let her contract you. Put out the fire first." The lightning vulture roared. "Come here," Fengzhou said. The lightning eagle hesitated for a moment before flying towards her. She leaped onto its back, and a gust of wind blew past, extinguishing the flames on its tail. "What are you waiting for? Let's go," Fengzhou said as he stood on the purple condor's back and looked ahead. The purple eagle glanced back at her, then flapped its wings and flew forward to the bald mountain. "Go to that little girl." Fengzhou pointed in Yi Feifei's direction. The purple eagle glanced at the human standing there and saw that it was a human girl. She was not very strong and was much weaker than the pervert on its back. "Wow, master, this purple eagle is so beautiful." Yi Feifei looked at it from a close distance. She saw that the purple eagle's fur was suffused with a purple color. She was not even half as tall as it when she stood in front of it. She could not help but want to reach out and touch its beautiful feathers. Fengzhou smiled and said, "I'll let this purple eagle be your contracted beast." As soon as she finished speaking, 2 cries of surprise rang out. "What? This human?" Chapter 4278. Hearing this, Du Fan and Ling Shuang could not help but look at each other. With their cultivation, they did not need the purple eagle, so it was most suitable for Yi Feifei. Fengzhou glanced at it coldly. "Do you think this is cabbage? Do you think you can choose your master?" Being glanced at by her, the purple eagle withered. It could not beat her, nor could it escape. What else could it do now? Yi Feifei looked at Fengzhou with bright eyes and looked excited. "Master, is this really for me? Really for me? Well, I'll contract it. Its fighting power is not bad, and it's a flying beast, so it's suitable for you," Fengzhou said with a smile, motioning her to contract the lightning eagle. "Good." Yi Feifei could not hide her joy. Looking at the big eagle in front of her, she said, "Squat down a little." The lightning eagle looked at her listlessly and then lay down. Not far away, Wang Yu looked at this scene and could not help but feel envious. That was a thunder lightning eagle, and it was a mythological beast, but it was given to Yi Feifei. Looking at Yi Feifei forming a seal to contract the purple eagle, he could not help but look at Fingzhou. She treated the people under her very well. Not only did she have pills for advancement, when there were suitable contract beasts, she would even capture them for the people under her to contract with. It was a pity that he could not enter her eyes and could not become one of her subordinates. From the beginning of his experience with them, he had seen Yi Feifei's strength advance by leaps and bounds. Now she had added such a powerful combat-type contracted beast. He had to admit that her fighting power was amazing now. Fingzhou watched from the side. After Yi Feifei completed the contract, he looked at the purple eagle and asked, "Why are you guarding here? Do you know that there is an ancient mythological beast under here?" The purple eagle looked at him and said, "Yes, the ancient Qilin has been sleeping in the magma under the ground for tens of thousands of years. I have been guarding here." "Who ordered you to stand guard here?" Fengzhou asked. "That was tens of thousands of years ago. How would I know? I wasn't even born tens of thousands of years ago." Zidiao shook his head and ignored Fengzhou. Hearing this, Fengzhou's eyes flashed. Seeing that she couldn't get anything out of him, she rose into the air and told the people below to get ready. As her spiritual power surged, her hands formed a formation, and the wind and clouds in the sky changed. The sky rumbled and was covered by a dark cloud. The Nightless Club, which had never had a cloudy day, had a cloudy sky for the first time. Almost the entire world was shrouded in a stirring dark cloud. The wind suddenly rose and whistled. The anomaly in the sky caused panic among the people in this world. At this moment, no matter where in the Nightless Club, the people here all hid in the house, but they couldn't help but curiously poke their heads out to look at the sky. Look! Were those dark clouds? Dark clouds have actually appeared in our Nightless Club. The dark clouds in the sky are terrible. It's like a vortex stirring in the sky. Is something going to happen? Chapter 4279. At the same time, in the Qilin Mountain, with the activation of the formation around the whole mountain glowed. Rays of light swept across the ground, forming an ancient formation visible to the naked eye. Seeing the ancient ceiling formation appear, Du Fan's eyes lit up. Only Master had the ability to break such a formation. If it were him, he might not be able to do it. With the activation of the formation, they stood in several positions and gathered their spiritual power to help Fingzhou. The spiritual power flowed along the formation in circles. When the light was completely covered, the spiritual power converged at the center of the formation. With a loud bang, the formation broke, and a powerful airflow surged from the ground and burst into the surroundings. Bang! Boom! With a loud bang, a beam of light shot up into the sky and disappeared into the clouds. In an instant, the whole sky was filled with a loud rumbling sound. It was as if thunder was swinging between the clouds, but also as if something had exploded. A powerful aura of pressure surged and spread out in the sky. The whole world fell into darkness in an instant, and there was no light at all. Du Fan and the others soared into the sky the moment the formation was broken. They leaped off the ground and spread out in all directions. Raising their heads to look at the pitch-black sky, a look of astonishment flashed across their eyes. They could clearly feel the airflow of energy, but why was there such an airflow in the sky? Moreover, why did the world fall into darkness in an instant? Could it be? An idea came to their minds, and they faintly guessed. However, at this time, the whole mountain below was trembling slightly. In the darkness, their master's voice came. "Quick! Get out of the way! Retreat to the distance!" Fengzhou's cold voice came into their ears. Even in the darkness, they could see the scene below. It seemed that the ground was loosening, and steam was rising. At the top of the mountain, the soil began to roll out. Du Fan, Ling Shuang, and Wang Yu quickly retreated. Yi Feifei, standing on the back of the purple eagle, also retreated to the distance, vigilantly watching the mountain below that began to surge. Bang, bang, bang. On the top of the mountain, large stones rolled down from high above, smashing into a cloud of dust. The heat and airflow collided with each other and surged upward. Fengjiu looked at the soil of the mountain, which seemed to be scalded by something extremely hot, gradually turning red in the darkness. At the top of the mountain, with a bang, the heat rushed upward, revealing a huge bottomless black hole. Hot air surged up from the black hole. Suddenly, a wave of boiling red magma emerged from the Earth's core with a rumble along with the flames. It surged out from the mouth of the mountain. Rolling magma poured down from the top of the mountain and quickly splashed down. It covered the bottom of the mountain and swallowed all the sand and stones on the ground. Suddenly, the whole place became as bright as day, as the magma and flames. A roar filled with an ancient power, and a roar came out of the magma cave. Roar. Chapter 4280. Looking at the majestic golden Qilin, Fengjiu's eyes lit up. This was an adult ancient Qilin beast. Its aura was powerful and intimidating. It soared into the sky from the magma and roared in mid-air, its voice echoing throughout the entire sky. Following the fire Qilin's emergence, the dark clouds in the sky also dispersed. However, it was not the usual hot day, but a quiet starry sky with twinkling stars. Looking at the starry sky, the people in this area could not help but widen their eyes in shock. Their faces were filled with disbelief. This is the starry sky. This is the night. This is the starry sky. Heavens! In my lifetime, I can actually see the appearance of the starry sky. I can see the sun and moon. The starry sky is actually like this. The cool night breeze has blown away the heat of the day. The stars in the sky are twinkling like pairs of pure eyes. The bright moon is so gentle, so bright and beautiful. In mid-air above Qilin Mountain, the fire Qilin's sharp and imposing gaze swept across the area and landed on the red-robed Fengjiu. You're the one who woke me up. Fengjiu looked at the fire Qilin and said directly, I want you to become my son's contracted beast. Impossible. The fire Qilin's imposing and deep voice was heard. Its four hooves stepped on flames and its body burned with flames. Its entire body emitted a majestic battle intent and intimidating aura. I am an ancient divine beast. I will never become a contracted beast of a human again. It stared at Fengjiu with its sharp eyes and said, Since you broke the formation and woke me up, I won't argue with you for your impudence. As soon as it finished speaking, it leaped up and prepared to leave. Seeing this, Fengjiu smiled and said arrogantly and confidently, Since I can break the formation and let you out, I can also seal you back into this magma. Whether you submit or not, in the end, you can't escape the fate of becoming my son's contracted beast. Impudent. The fire Qilin was enraged. It opened its mouth and spat out a ball of flames towards Fengjiu. However, it did not expect Fengjiu to wave his sleeves and leap into the air. Instead of dodging or escaping, he charged towards the fire Qilin. I should be the one saying that, Fengjiu said. At the same time, he released his ancient divine aura and gathered spiritual energy in his palms and struck out with flames. Ancient Fire Phoenix. The fire Qilin was stunned as it felt a familiar ancient divine aura from her body. It immediately turned to leave. You want to escape? Did I allow you to escape? The corners of Fengjiu's lips curled up slightly. She shot forward like an arrow and leaped onto the back of the fire Qilin. She grabbed the two Qilin horns on its head with both hands. Let go. The fire Qilin shook its head and wanted to throw her off, but it could not get rid of the person on its back. Not only that, but the flames on its body were also extinguished as she rode on it. This made it clear that this human had the ancient fire phoenix's heavenly fire and its flames could not hurt her at all. Fengjiu clamped the fire Qilin's body with his legs and one hand holding the Qilin's horns. He clenched his other hand into a fist and punched the fire Qilin fiercely. The powerful force was mixed with hidden energy. With a bang, the fire Qilin cried out. Let go! Let go of me! Chapter 4281. Fengjiu clamped the fire Qilin between her legs and spoke in a low voice, Qilin beast, I am the Lord of heaven and earth in both heaven realms. If you follow my son, I won't bury you. If you don't know what's good for you, don't blame me for being rude. Her voice was cold and contained a powerful aura that enveloped the fire Qilin. She knew that it was very difficult to make an ancient divine beast submit to her. If she was not tough enough, she would not be able to tame it. Hearing Fengjiu's words, the Qilin beast paused but still said, I am an ancient Qilin. How could I acknowledge a human kid as my master? I refuse. All right. If you refuse, I'll beat you until you think I'm done. A cold light flashed in Fengjiu's eyes. She knew that this ancient Qilin beast had been in a deep slumber for a long time and its arrogance was hard to erase. Therefore, she did not hold back and immediately leaped onto the Qilin's back and threw a punch at the fire Qilin. Bang, bang, bang. 3 punches containing a powerful aura and a swift and fierce airflow suddenly struck the Qilin beast. Each punch caused the Qilin beast, who was in midair, to fall more than 10 meters down. When the third punch landed, the Qilin beast had been violently smashed into the ground. Under the impact of the powerful airflow and the force of the punch, a loud bang sounded from the ground. A large hole immediately opened up and was quickly filled up by the magma. Roar! The fire Qilin fell sideways into the magma. The boiling hot magma did not seem to hurt it at all. Instead, it did not seem to touch its body. As it stood up, its body shook and the magma splashed out and fell back to the ground, mixing into one. It roared and leaped into the air with its 4 hooves, charging towards Fengjiu in midair. Its speed was fast and its momentum was fierce like lightning. However, before it could get close to Fengjiu, she kicked it down again. Bang! The Qilin beast rolled into the magma again. It stood up with a fierce look in its eyes, full of defiance and anger. It was an ancient divine beast, but it had been defeated by a human again and again. The pride of an ancient divine beast was too much for it to tolerate. Human! I'll let you have a taste of this prince's power. It roared and leaped from the ground. Using the momentum of the mountain, it soared into the air. Along with the surge of spiritual energy from its body, a raging flame rose and rushed towards Fengjiu. Fengjiu coldly looked at this scene and sneered, I am a dignified god-king expert. If I can't even subdue a little Qilin like you, then I, Fengjiu, will write my name backwards. She waved her hands in front of her, and her natal skyfire gushed out from her body, turning into the shape of a fire dragon and charging toward the Qilin beast. Hoo! Swish! The fierce airflow turned into a fire dragon, roaring and rushing out, colliding with the Qilin beast. The two forces collided with each other. As the two airflows competed, the aura in the air became condensed. The ancient coercion spread, making Yi Feifei and Wang Yu feel as if a mountain was pressing on their hearts, and even breathing became difficult. Perceiving the change of the ancient coercion in the air, Du Fan immediately said to Zi Condor, take Feifei and retreat. At the same time, he leaped and came to where Wang Yu was, taking her to a place where the ancient coercion could not reach. Boom! Chapter 4282. Fengjiu stood in the air with her hands clasped behind her back. She looked down at the wretched Qilin beast with a cold expression. She said in a cold voice, do you admit defeat? I don't admit defeat. It raised its head and roared. I'll beat you until you admit defeat. As soon as Fengzhou's voice fell, the wind from her palm came down from the air and blasted toward the Qilin beast below. In the distance, Du Fan and the others watched and thought that it was indeed difficult to tame an ancient mythical beast. Ancient mythical beasts were arrogant by nature. Moreover, this Qilin beast had been sleeping for tens of thousands of years. How could it agree to contract with a human when it woke up? However, they believed that in the end, this Qilin beast would still submit to their master. It still had the strength to fight back because its spirit had not been completely destroyed by their master. The purple eagle watched as the ancient Qilin beast rushed forward again and was slapped into the ground again and again. It watched as it was injured again and got up again and again. It could not help but shudder. This human was too cruel. Even the ancient Qilin beast was no match for her. Fortunately, it had submitted early. Otherwise, it would have suffered some flesh wounds. That night, Du Fan and the others, along with the purple eagle, watched from a distance. They watched as the Qilin beast rushed forward again and stood up to fight again and again. From the dark night until the sun rose on the third day, the dying Qilin beast lay on the ground. It looked at Fengzhou, who was standing in the air, and said, "I admit defeat, I admit defeat." It was unable to fight anymore. It was beaten down again, and it clearly realized how powerful this human was. She was so powerful. Perhaps its son would not be too weak. It had been sleeping for tens of thousands of years, but it did not expect to wake up and become a human's contract beast. Even if it did not want to, it had no choice because it did not want to be trapped under the ground and sleep in the magma for tens of thousands of years. Hearing its words, Fengzhou's expression eased. She looked at the Qilin beast covered in cuts and bruises and said, "You won't regret today's decision." As soon as she finished speaking, she flicked her hand and a pill fell into its slightly open mouth. Before the Qilin beast could react, it had already swallowed the pill. It wanted to ask what it was, but unexpectedly, it felt that its exhausted body was gradually being healed by a wave of spiritual energy, and it felt a burst of comfort in its body. After a while, it stood up and shook its body. When it felt that it had almost recovered, it couldn't help but be delighted. "Your medicinal pills are very powerful." Fengzhou glanced at it and said, "Be obedient, and you'll get plenty of good things in the future." As he spoke, he descended from the sky and said, "Today, I will first form a contract with you. When we return, we will cancel the contract between us. Then, you can form a life contract with my son." Hearing this, the Qilin beast's eyes flashed and said, "I know." Fengzhou raised her hand and stretched out a finger. Between her fingers, a ray of light shot into the Qilin beast's eyebrows and a mark was formed as she whispered the contract spell. After the contract between the human and the beast was formed, Fengzhou flicked her sleeves and said, "Go into the space and rest. Don't touch anything in the space." As soon as she finished speaking, the Qilin beast in front of her disappeared from sight and turned into a ray of light and entered her space. Chapter 4283. Upon seeing this, the people beside him also stepped forward to congratulate him. Fengzhou smiled and rubbed his eyebrows tiredly. He looked at the sky and said, "The curse array of the Nightless Club was broken with the Qilin beast breaking out of the array. Now there is a day and night division. It can be considered as doing a good deed for the people of the Nightless Club. The people here only had day and no night all year round. Now, there was finally a day and night division. Generally speaking, it was a good thing. At least, as the day and night returned to normal, the people of this world could live a good life. Moreover, after the day and night division, they believed that the spiritual power of this world would gradually recover. For the cultivators here, perhaps there was a chance to suddenly enter the fairy realm from the nascent soul realm. However, they didn't know if the demonic cultivator was still in this world. They had to go back and investigate. "Let's find a place to rest. We'll go to Infinite City later," Fengzhou said. He glanced around and turned to leave. Thus, Dufan and the others followed him to a shady place. They found a water source in the mountain forest and prepared to rest and eat something while they were at it. They didn't know what was happening outside, so they didn't know that the entire Nightless Club was jubilant at this time. After a day or two, the people of the Nightless Club saw that their world finally had a sunrise and sunset. There was finally a starry night and a moon. However, no one knew why the day and night division was restored. The ancient city lord and the others were guessing in their hearts. They faintly felt that this was related to Fingzhou and the others. Perhaps, their world had a day and night division because of what Fingzhou did. After all, it wasn't surprising that such a powerful person could do something in the Qilin Mountain. Because they were injured, they returned to Infinite City first. When Lord Jiang saw them in the city, he couldn't help but ask in surprise, "Why are you the only ones back? Where are Miss Feng and the others?" They looked at each other and said, "It's a long story. We're injured. Let us rest first." Hearing this, Lord Jiang hurriedly arranged for them and said, "A few days ago, there was a strange phenomenon in the entire Nightless Club. Not long after, there was a day and night division. Now, forces everywhere are guessing what's going on." Lord Jiang walked in with them. As he looked at them, he noticed that their expressions were strange. He understood a little in his heart. It seemed that it was not much different from his guess. In the courtyard of the guest room, they sat down to rest. Then, they looked at Lord Jiang and asked, "Have any demonic cultivators appeared recently?" Demonic cultivators. City Lord Jiang was slightly surprised. "We rarely see devil cultivators in this place. How could there be one?" As soon as he finished speaking, he seemed to have thought of something. He couldn't help but be startled. He exclaimed, "The injuries on your bodies couldn't be caused by demonic cultivators, right?" "Yes." They nodded and said, "We were ambushed by devil cultivators on Qilin Mountain, and those devil cultivators wanted us to submit to them. Fortunately, Miss Feng saved us in the end, so she asked us to come back first and check if there were any traces of devil cultivators." Chapter 4284. Find out about their background. The few of them were stunned and asked in surprise, "Why would those people want to find out about their background? They don't even know Miss Feng and the rest." Seeing this, City Lord Jiang smiled. "That's because you don't know. On the day they entered the city, a nascent soul cultivator from one of the underground forces in the city had his cultivation crippled by young Master Du and the rest. Although I have suppressed this matter, the other forces in the city have more or less heard of it. Therefore, they are curious about the background of someone who has the ability to cripple a nascent soul cultivator's cultivation." "I see." The few of them suddenly understood and looked at City Lord Jiang. "You're too mean. Didn't you say that you would let us know if you found out anything? I can't believe he actually managed to suppress this matter. I think that when the time comes, you will definitely know." City Lord Jiang smiled and said, "All right, you all have a good rest first. I'll go and settle some matters." As he spoke, he stood up and glanced at the few of them before walking out. "I'll let my family members find out about it first." Yuan Pingji said and looked at the others, "What about you all? What do you plan to do? Since Miss Feng has instructed us, we won't dare to decline. We will also send a message to our family members to find out about the demonic cultivator and see if there are any discoveries." The others said. City Lord Gu said slowly, "My place is a little remote and the demonic cultivator probably won't go there. However, I will send a message to them to be more careful. If there are any discoveries, let me know." "So, you don't plan to go back?" Yuan Pingji looked at City Lord Gu and asked. "Miss Feng and the rest haven't returned yet. I plan to wait for them to return before making any arrangements." City Lord Gu said and stood up, "I'll go back to the guest room to rest first. You all should also rest and change your medicine. Recuperating is the most important thing." Seeing this, the few of them did not say anything and went back to the guest room to rest. A few days later, Fengzhou and the rest returned to the city. When they returned, they felt that the city had changed. The black cloth that covered the sun in the past had been removed. The faces of the people in the city were filled with happy smiles. They could be seen everywhere talking about the day and night finally returning to the world. "Master, when the matters here are settled, should we go back?" Yi Feifei asked. Fengzhou walked slowly and said, "Little Fox's ability has not recovered yet. I don't know when she wants to go back. However, this world is an ownerless land. I originally wanted to let Du Fan take over, but he's not interested." As Fengzhou spoke, she glanced at Du Fan helplessly, "SSSS." Fengzhou shook his head and smiled. After walking for a while, he saw a group of people walking quickly and stopping in front of them. "Ha ha ha, young lady, our family head would like to invite you to stay in his residence for a few days. I wonder if you would do us the honor." A middle-aged man stepped forward with a smile and cupped his hands. His gaze fell on Fengzhou. Chapter 4285. "My main family is the Su family in the city," the middle-aged man said quickly. Fengzhou smiled and said, "We have made an appointment with Governor Jiang. We will go to the city lord's mansion when we come back." "Sorry." With that, he walked past them. Seeing this, the middle-aged man and others did not dare to stop them. After watching them leave, they hurried to the mansion to report to the family head. When walking to the city lord's mansion, Yi Feifei asked curiously, "Master, we don't know them. Why do they want to invite us to their family? These people don't want any benefits. Who knows what they want?" Fengzhou said with a smile. Now that the ancient nine-tailed fox spirit and the Kailan beast had been found, he was relaxed. He could leave and go back as soon as things here were solved. Speaking of which, they had been away for almost a year. Thinking of the two children's soft words and the longing in their words, she could not wait to go back to them. As a mother, even if she was away, her heart was tightly tied to the children at home. This kind of tie made people happy. Fengzhou carried the children all the way and just walked quietly. Du Fan and others next to him chatted as they walked. "Wang Yu, are you going to be a bridegroom when you go back?" Du Fan patted Wang Yu on the shoulder and said with a smile, "You've already found yourself a marriage after coming out. You're quite fast." Being teased by him, Wang Yu smiled embarrassedly. "When I go back, I will propose marriage. If possible, I would like to invite you to stay for the wedding. We will see how my master will arrange it. However, whether we stay for the wedding or not, you will not be short of a gift." Du Fan said with a smile. When they went to the city lord's mansion, Governor Jiang, who learned that they had returned to the city, came to greet them with people. When he saw them on the way, he quickly greeted them with a smile. "Miss Feng, you are back. It must have been a hard journey." "City Lord Jiang." Fengzhou nodded slightly. "It seems that the city lord will know the moment we enter the city. Ha ha ha, didn't I instruct the guards in the city to report immediately if they see you return?" City Lord Jiang said with a smile. "Elder Gu and the others arrived a few days ago, and they're still recuperating in the city lord's estate while waiting for Miss to return. As soon as I learned of your arrival, I had the servants prepare a banquet to welcome you all." "Sorry to trouble you," Fengzhou said. "No, no, please." He gestured for her to go first. When the people in the city saw how courteous City Lord Jiang was, they were slightly surprised and couldn't help but look at Fengzhou and the others. They knew these people. When they entered the city some time ago, they seemed to have encountered Wang Laohu and the others. Not long after, they came to the city lord's estate. Under the warm hospitality of the city lord, Fengzhou and the others went back to the guest room to take a bath and rest. When Elder Gu and the others learned that Fengzhou and the others were back, they didn't have time to adjust their qi circulation and meditate, but wanted to see them. However, after all, their identities were different. They couldn't go directly to Fengzhou's courtyard, so they could only wait in the front yard. After drinking a cup of tea, Fengzhou and the others still hadn't appeared. After drinking 2 cups of tea, they still didn't see anyone. Chapter 4286. Miss Feng. They hurriedly stood up and bowed to her. Fengzhou nodded at them and said, "Are your injuries better?" She walked in with Du Fan and the others behind her. "We're much better now." "Thank you for your concern, Miss Feng," they hurriedly said. Fengzhou entered, and City Lord Jiang hurriedly invited her to the seat of honor. Seeing this, Fengzhou smiled and didn't say anything. She just walked to the seat of honor and sat down. "How is the matter that I asked you to investigate?" Fengzhou asked and looked at them. "After we returned, we sent a message to our family to investigate. In some other places, there were indeed traces of demonic cultivators. However, there weren't many humans, but their strength was above the nascent soul realm." As Yuan Pingji spoke, his face was solemn. He continued, "One family rebelled and refused to submit, so they were wiped out by demonic cultivators overnight. However, this matter hasn't spread yet." Hearing this, Fengzhou pondered and said, "Now, this realm isn't connected to other realms. Cultivators from other realms can't come here without an extremely powerful teleportation array. Even if the demonic cultivators have such a treasure, there shouldn't be many demonic cultivators teleported here." She spoke slowly and paused. "However, there are very few flying immortal cultivators in the Nightless Paradise. As long as the demonic cultivator's strength is above the nascent soul realm, you don't have the ability to fight against them." They looked at each other and said, "Miss Feng means that even if demonic cultivators come from other realms, there won't be many of them?" "Yes." Fengzhou responded and looked at them. "How about this? We'll set a trap and lure these demonic cultivators to one place, then we'll catch them all in one fell swoop. What does Miss Feng want us to do?" Fengzhou smiled and said, "We just need to spread the news." She looked at them and said, "Just say that the Qilin beast appeared in Infinite City and used the Qilin beast to lure them out." Hearing this, they couldn't help but ponder. "But, if we do this, will they take the bait? These demonic cultivators will definitely ask for credit from their demon masters. If they know that the ancient divine beast Qilin has appeared here, they will naturally be hooked." Based on her understanding of the fiendish cultivators, when such a good thing happened, they would fight to be the first to claim the credit. Therefore, once the news got out, the fiendish cultivators would come to Infinite City without them having to look for them. But this Qilin beast hasn't appeared for tens of thousands of years. Even if we release the news, I'm afraid they won't believe it. Cultivator Lei said. He felt that if he released the news, those people wouldn't be so easily hooked. "You just need to do as I say, don't worry about anything else," Fengzhou said. Seeing this, everyone didn't say anything else. They only responded with a yes, and then discussed some matters for a while before leaving one after another. When Fengzhou walked out of the hall and stood in the front yard, she flicked her sleeve and called out softly, "Come out." As her voice fell, a golden figure leaped out from her space and landed in front of her. The few people who walked out earlier didn't see this scene, but City Lord Jiang and Lord Gu Qing, who were walking behind, saw this scene with their own eyes. For a moment, their expressions changed in shock. "Ancient Qilin beast!" The two of them exclaimed softly, looking at Fengzhou in disbelief. Chapter 4287. After hearing her words, the Qilin beast let out a low roar and leaped into the sky, disappearing from sight in the blink of an eye. Only the faint roar of a Qilin could be heard echoing in the sky above Infinite City. City Lord Jiang and City Lord Gu looked at each other in shock, then looked at Fengzhou. "Miss Feng found a Qilin beast in Qilin Mountain." Fengzhou responded, then looked at the two, saying, "After today, the news will spread. From today onwards, City Lord Jiang will be very busy." City Lord Zhang's expression turned solemn, and he said, Miss Feng, don't worry. In a moment, I will give the order to strengthen the guards in the manor and pay attention to the movements in the city. Feng Zhou nodded and said, all right, then I will go back and rest first. If there is anything, you can tell Du Fan and the others. City Lord Jiang glanced at Du Fan, then cupped his hands and said, okay, I understand. Thus, after arranging everything, Feng Zhou returned to the courtyard first. Not long after, the Qilin beast, which had gone around the city, returned to the courtyard and instantly entered her space. If there is nothing important, don't disturb me. Feng Zhou said to Du Fan and the others beside her, then stepped into the room. Reaching out, she set up a barrier and entered the space. Inside the space, she glanced at the contracted beasts inside the space, then walked to the spring and looked at the golden lotus that was emitting a soft golden light. She went to the side of the golden lotus and sat down cross-legged, placing her hands behind her back. Following the circulation of her spiritual energy, her body gradually emitted a green light. Seeing their master cultivating there, the contracted beasts inside the space were tactful and did not disturb her. They all quietly lay down to the side. On the other side, in the Feng manor, two little people were lying on the table, their clear and beautiful eyes blinking as they looked at the jade communication tablet in front of them. Big brother, what do you think mother is doing now? Yu asked curiously. Mother might be thinking about us too. Little Mu Chen said as he stared at the jade token in front of him. Hearing these words, Yu Er's eyes shone, and her immature voice carried a bit of probing. Big brother, since mother is also thinking about us, then can we use communication jade tablet to talk to mother? Little Mukin shook his head. Daddy said that we can't keep bothering mother. Mother will come back after she's done with her business. But Yu misses mother. She leaned on the table and pouted as she spoke in a small voice. Little Mukin thought about it and suggested, why don't we go memorize the incantation? When mother comes back, we can recite it to her. I can recite all the mantras that daddy taught me, the little one said listlessly. Then let's practice footwork. Little Mu Chen suggested again. Hearing these words, Yu thought for a bit, then nodded her head, okay, let's practice footwork. Thus, the two little guys put away their communication jades and walked outside. Arriving at the open space in the courtyard, the little ones practiced the footwork that their daddy taught them step by step. Xianyuan Mo stood outside the courtyard and watched. Seeing that the two were practicing seriously, he did not disturb them. Instead, he turned around and left. After walking for a while, he saw Hui Lang coming over to greet him. Master. Hui Lang called out and said, I received news that the demonic cultivators have begun to move again recently. It seems that they are expanding their forces everywhere. Chapter 4288. When they arrived at the pavilion, Xianyuan Mo sat down and asked, have you found out where they gather? We don't have many people in this area. We only got the news from some aristocratic families. We haven't found their base yet, but we know that they are trying to rope in some aristocratic families and underground forces. Hui Lang looked at him and said, if the aristocratic families are not desperate, they won't seek refuge with the demonic cultivators. However, it's hard to say about the underground forces. Therefore, I'm worried that if the demonic cultivators collude with the underground forces, they will become stronger and stronger. Then find them and destroy them. Xianyuan Mo said in a low voice. He stared at the sky and said, let Qi Kong deal with this matter. We can't let it grow. Also, try to find out where the demon lord is hiding. Yes, Hui Lang replied immediately and asked, Master, is there any news from Madam? How long will it take for her to return? She had been gone for almost a year. He didn't know how she was doing. She should be almost done with her business there. Perhaps she will be back soon. Xianyuan Mose lowered his eyes and said slowly. Hearing this, Grey Wolf grinned and said, that's good. We haven't seen Madam for almost a year. Not only do the two young masters miss her, but we also miss her. As he spoke, he bowed and said, then I'll go talk to Chi Kong about this matter. Xianyuan Mo sat quietly in the pavilion for a moment. Then, he saw two small figures practicing their newly learned footwork as they walked towards him. They seemed to be competing to see who was faster, as both of them swept past like the wind. Seeing this, the corners of his mouth curled up and a satisfied smile appeared in his eyes. His and Fingzhou's children were indeed very talented. In addition, they were born with innate spiritual bodies. Their cultivation speed was incomparable to that of ordinary people. With their cultivation speed, he felt that in a few years, not to mention children of the same age, even those who were older than them might not be able to surpass them. Thinking about this, he nodded inwardly. It was a good thing that their cultivation was stronger, but even if it was cultivation, they couldn't be too hasty. Perhaps because they saw Xianyuan Mo's was sitting in the pavilion, two small figures came back after circling around. Yu trotted and threw herself into the bosom of Xianyuan Mo's, then happily said, Daddy, Daddy, my footwork is faster than Big Brother. Big Brother is unable to catch up with me. Xianyuan Mo smiled and rubbed her head. He carried her to sit on his lap and said, You is very powerful. As he spoke, he also carried his son and said, How about Daddy take you out to play today? Where do you want to go? Daddy will take you there. Hearing this, the two children's eyes lit up. Really? Daddy, are you going to play with us? Yes, Daddy will accompany you to play. Xianyuan Mo's replied, his eyes full of affection. Father, Yu wants to go boating. Father, I want to go too. Okay, Daddy will take you there. He stood up. With one hand holding his daughter and the other hand holding his son, he said, After boating, Daddy will take you to eat pastries. There is a shop in the city that makes very good pastries. Your mother also likes to eat them. Okay. The two children answered in unison. With a happy face, they followed him out of the door. Chapter 4289. For the two children who rarely went out, it was a very happy thing to be able to go out with their father. Sitting in the carriage, Yu secretly lifted the curtain and looked outside. She saw that the street outside was bustling with noise and excitement. There were many things that they had never seen before, and some children who were about the same age as them were wearing open-crotch pants and running around behind the adults. The little one couldn't help but blink curiously. Daddy, why are those children wearing torn pants? Aren't they embarrassed? Yu's soft voice was filled with curiosity. Hearing his sister's words, little Mu-chin also lifted the curtain and looked outside. Sure enough, there were children who were older than them who were also wearing open-crotch pants. Their clothes were very dirty and messy, and their little faces were also like little kittens. They are so dirty, why don't they wash? Little Mu-chin also turned around and asked their father. Xianyuan Mo smiled and took a sip of the tea on the small table in the carriage. He said, Because they are children from ordinary families. What is an ordinary family's child? The two children didn't understand and asked. He put down the teacup and looked at the two children and earnestly said, An ordinary family's child means that their family is ordinary. They may not have cultivation, and their family has no money or power. They have to run around and work hard for 3 meals a day. In order to earn money to support the family, they may not take care of their children. His voice paused, and he looked at the two children and said, And you, your parents are the masters of heaven and earth, the world's strongest. You are different from them from your birth. Your starting line is higher than others. When you were born, you had everything that many people in this world can't even get in their lifetime. However, the responsibility on your shoulders, as well as the expectations we have for you, are heavier and higher than others. Even the difficulties and dangers you will experience in the future will be more than others. The two children listened as if they didn't understand. They looked at each other and said, "We understand." Xianyuanmos picked up the teacup and took another sip of tea. He played with the teacup in his hand and said, "In this world, even if you don't divide people into different classes, people will divide themselves into different classes. This world is the world of the strong. If you are strong, you can control your own fate. If you are weak, your fate will be in the hands of others. Even death cannot be decided by yourself. This is the rule of this world." The two little fellows sat in the carriage as they listened to their father speak. Perhaps they did not understand some of the words, but there were some that they could understand. Leng Hua, who was driving the carriage, and Bai Qingqing, looked at each other and couldn't help but show a smile. The two children were still so young. The carriage moved slowly. When it reached the destination, the two children got off the carriage and stopped it. Only then did they let the masters get off the carriage. Today, the weather was still sunny. There weren't many people at the lakeside. A gentle breeze blew across the lake, creating ripples on the surface of the lake. The two children were like birds that were set free, running to the lakeside. "Father, father, come quickly." Yu ran and shouted. At the same time, she turned her head and waved at Xianyuanmos. Chapter 4290. In front of them, Yu was squatting by the lakeside and playing with water. Her boots were already soaked and the corner of her skirt was also stained with water droplets. Little Mu Chin stood to the side and watched while saying, "Sister, your skirt is wet." "Brother, brother, come quickly, ah." Little Yu giggled. She raised her leg and heavily stepped on the water. Seeing the water splash all over her body, she couldn't help but giggle. Fun, fun, really fun. She clapped her little hands and stepped on the water to play. When she saw a small fish hiding in the shallow grass by the lakeside, her eyes couldn't help but light up. "Brother, there's a small fish here." As she spoke, she walked towards the shallow grass. Not far away, Xianyuanmos saw this and said to Leng Hua, "Take them away from the lakeside. Be careful not to fall. In addition, find a small boat. Ben Jun will take the two of them to row." "Yes." Leng Hua answered, and tiptoed forward to pick up Yu, who was walking towards the shallow grass. Then he went to little Mu Chin and picked him up as well, and brought him to stand on a rock. "Qingqing, take Yu to the carriage to change into a clean skirt and boots." Leng Hua looked at Bai Qingqing and said, "Okay." Bai Qingqing responded and went forward to carry Yu to the carriage. "Mu Chin, do you want to go with Uncle Hua to find a small boat?" Leng Hua asked with a smile. "En." He nodded and followed Leng Hua to the other side. Xianyuanmos looked on and stood with his hands behind his back. His gaze swept across the lake. After his daughter changed into a new dress and came back, he stretched out his hand and said, "Yu, father will carry you." Little Yu happily rushed forward and threw herself into his embrace. Like a little bird, she kept talking non-stop. "Father, father, Yu just saw a small fish." "Small fish is this big." She stretched out her little hand and gestured. "Father, can we catch fish from the small boat?" Yu wants to catch a big fish, not a small one. Hearing this, Xianyuanmos smiled, "I can catch it." He paused for a moment before asking, "Yu do you want to eat fish?" Yu wants to eat, Yu wants to eat big fish." She gestured with her hands, drawing a big circle in front of her. Bai Qingqing, who was following behind, couldn't help but smile when she saw this. She couldn't help but think of her master when she saw how excited her little master's eyes were. Master had been gone for almost a year. According to Leng Hua, Master should be coming back soon. But when would he come back? "Father, sister, I'm here." On the lake, on a small boat, little Mu Chin stood at the bow of the boat and waved at them. His small voice spread across the lake and into the ears of the people by the lake. The eyes of some of the men and women who were playing around lit up when they saw the child dressed in a white robe on the small boat. When they looked at Xianyuan and the little girl in his arms, they couldn't help but secretly praise them in their hearts. This family was really outstanding and handsome. Even the appearance of the attendant behind them was also exceptional. Who knew where they came from? For a moment, many young men and women stared at them and sized them up. But even more of the men stared at Bai Qingqing while the women sneaked glances at Xianyuan. They didn't think that this was a family because although the appearance of the woman behind them was exceptional, she always walked 3 steps behind the black-robed man's child. Chapter 4291. Because Leng Hua also got on the boat, Bai Qingqing didn't follow. Instead, she stopped at the shore and watched them get on the boat and row towards the lake. The children's laughter was like a silver bell on the boat, reverberating in the air and entering everyone's ears. On the boat, the 2 children sat at the bow, watching the fish swimming in the water and smiling happily. Little Yu stretched out her hand to catch a fish, but was stopped by a shout. You can't do this. You'll fall into the lake. Xianyuan calmly said. Seeing his daughter retract her hand, he was satisfied and relaxed his expression, saying, just sit on the boat and watch. While speaking, he looked at Leng Hua. Leng Hua faintly smiled and looked for the boatman to get a long bamboo pole. The bamboo pole had a sharp end, so it could be used to catch fish. Watch carefully, Leng Hua said as he stood on the side of the boat and looked at the fish in the water. When he found a relatively large fish, he stabbed the bamboo pole into the water. With a whoosh, the sharp bamboo pole pierced through the water and pierced the body of the swimming fish. Ah! Caught it, caught it! Yu happily clapped her hands, her small face brimming with a pleasantly surprised smile. Little Mu Qin saw that the bamboo pole had pierced a fish and couldn't help but smile. His gaze was fixed on the fish on the bamboo pole. Crash! Leng Hua lifted the bamboo pole, and the palm-sized fish that had been pierced struggled under the sun, motionless. There's a fish basket here. Little Mu Qin quickly handed the fish basket to Leng Hua. After putting the fish in, Leng Hua looked at them and said, "Do you want to try?" Yes. The 2 children agreed at the same time. Their eyes were filled with expectation as they looked at Leng Hua. After a while, they looked at Xianyuan who was standing at the side with his hands behind his back and asked, "Daddy, can we try?" And Xianyuan replied and said, "Pay attention to your safety. Be careful not to fall into the water." Yes, yes. The 2 children nodded quickly. They stood by the side of the boat. Leng Hua took them to catch fish. Some were big, some were small. The water splashed and wet the corners of their clothes, but the 2 children had a lot of fun. When the sky gradually darkened, they sat in the carriage and went to the pastry house in the city. "My lord, can I go buy some pastries and bring them back?" Leng Hua looked at Xianyuan. Seeing that the sky was getting dark, he thought that it was better not to stay outside for too long. It was the same to buy some pastries back to eat. "Don't worry, let's go down together. I'll take them to the night market later," Xianyuan said as he got off the carriage first. Only then did he carry the 2 children down. "I'll stay behind to guard the carriage. You 2 go in," Bai Qingqing said as she drove the carriage to the back. The 2 children held Xianyuan hand and entered the pastry house. They went to the 2nd floor. Leng Hua followed behind them. After sitting down on the 2nd floor, Leng Hua ordered some of his signature pastries and tea and waited at the side. "Daddy, I want to go to the toilet," Little Mu Qin said as he looked at Xianyuan. "I also want to go, I also want to go." Little Yu raised her small hand and said with a smile. She stepped forward and held her brother's hand and said, "You will go with brother." Xianyuan Mose glanced at the two children and said to Leng Hua, "Take them. Let Qingqing follow you." Chapter 4292. You, come, I'll take you there. Bai Qingqing walked over to her side and held her hand. Then, she said to Leng Hua, "I'll take her there. Later, I'll bring her to the second floor." Okay. Leng Hua responded and led little Mukin to the back. Bai Qingqing held Yu's hand and led her to the other side. On the second floor, Xianyuan Mose held a cup of tea in his hands and looked out at the bustling streets with people coming and going. Just as he was about to look away, a small figure darted into the crowd like a fairy. Seeing that Yu, who was wearing a pink-colored small dress, quietly turned her head to look at him, and again revealing a crafty smile, she drilled into the crowd, causing his eyebrows to slightly wrinkle. Because of his worry, he was about to stand up and go downstairs when he saw Bai Qingqing quietly following behind him. Seeing this, his anxious heart finally relaxed. Little Mukin came back with Leng Hua, but when he saw that his sister was not around, he couldn't help but ask his father, "Daddy, is little sister not back yet?" "She sneaked out to play," Xianyuan Mose said and gestured for them to look at the small figure on the street below. Leng Hua and little Mukin were startled. They quickly went forward and looked at the street. Sure enough, they saw the small figure moving around and looking around. "I'll go and bring her back," little Mukin said and was about to go downstairs. "No need," Xianyuan Mose said and gestured for him to sit down. "Let her go outside and take a look." But little Mukin was a little worried. At this time, Leng Hua's voice was heard. "Qingqing is secretly following behind. It'll be fine," Leng Hua said gently and looked at Xianyuan Mose. "Yu is probably just curious about the outside world and doesn't want us to follow her. That's why she sneaked out to play." Xianyuan Mose took a sip of tea and said, "Tell Qingqing to secretly watch over her. Don't come out." "Yes, sir," Leng Hua answered and took out his communication jade. Little Muchen saw that his father's face was dark and seemed a little angry, so he did not say anything. He just sat quietly and ate the pastries, waiting for his sister to come back. On the other side, little Yu, who had sneaked out to play, had a big smile on her face as she strode along the main street with her short legs. When she saw a small stall selling toys, she leaned against the stall and looked at it. After picking a few things, she took out a gold coin and gave it to the stall owner. Then, she skipped away. A little girl who was less than 3 years old was wandering on the street by herself and occasionally took out gold coins to buy things. It could be said that she was targeted almost immediately. The two hoodlums gathered together and whispered to each other. From time to time, they would stare at the little person in front of them as they followed behind. After looking left and right to make sure that no one was following the little person, they immediately quickened their pace to catch up. When Bai Qingqing, who was hiding in the dark, saw this, her face turned cold. Just as she was about to step forward, someone put a hand on her shoulder. She instinctively reached out to grab the person and wanted to throw him away. However, she heard Leng Hua's voice. "It's me." Bai Qingqing paused and looked back. She saw that other than Leng Hua, the Yama Lord and little Mu Qin had also come. She immediately bowed and respectfully called out, "Yama Lord." Xianyuan Mose slowly walked forward and asked, "Why did you let her sneak out?"